My parents called CPS on me for raising their kids since I was 13, claiming I overstepped boundaries and stole their chance to parent. When I begged them to think of Adam and Lily, my mother smiled and said, "This doesn't end until one of us gives up. I've got nothing left to lose." I just stared at her. That was 6 months ago. Yesterday, she got her test results back, started shaking, and hasn't stopped. Adam's first word wasn't mama or dada. It was Theo. I remember it like it was yesterday. He was in that chunky high chair that barely fit in our cramped kitchen, pointing at me with a mouthful of mashed banana. "Teo," he said, all wobbly syllables and drool. My mom laughed like it was a cute coincidence. But it wasn't. I was the one who fed him, changed him, rocked him to sleep. It made sense. My name's Theo. I'm 19 years old, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been raising my siblings since I was 12. Back then, our mom was just starting to take off as a wedding photographer. She was always jetting off to Charleston or Asheville for someone's big day, chasing golden hour with her vintage Canon while we made boxed mac and cheese and hoped the power stayed on. Dad worked in real estate, or at least, that's what he said. What he really did was chase commissions, keep secrets on his phone, and lecture us about how success takes sacrifice. I was the sacrifice. I gave up normal teenage stuff to keep our house running. I skipped prom because Lily had a fever and wouldn't sleep without me. I turned down a football scholarship because there was no one else to take Adam to his therapy appointments. I worked the night shift at a gas station at 16. I never told anyone how many times I came home to an empty fridge and used my own tips to buy dinner for them. I kept everything organized. Church schedules, dentist appointments, allergy meds, all color-coded in a notebook I still carry. I packed lunches, signed permission slips, even forged a few because Mom was too busy curating her Mother of the Year persona on Instagram. She had thousands of followers who ate it up. #blessed. She'd write under a photo of Adam at soccer practice. Never mind that I was the one who drove him there. Graduation day was last month. It was hot, the kind of muggy June heat that sticks to your lungs. My entire extended family showed up for Adam, even people I hadn't seen since Grandpa's funeral. I was sitting way in the back, near the overflow seats, when they called his name. He walked up to the mic, looking nervous but steady. And then he said it. "I want to thank my brother Theo, who's really been my dad." It was silent for a second. Then he added, "He's the one who raised me, who made sure Lily and I had food, and rides to school, and someone to talk to. He's the reason I'm standing here." I felt my chest crack open. I smiled, even as my eyes burned. But I wasn't the only one reacting. I saw Mom's jaw clench in the front row. Dad looked like someone had just slapped him in front of his clients. A few cousins started whispering. Grandma gasped so loud I heard it from 10 rows back. Adam kept talking, naming every sacrifice I'd made, the jobs, the missed milestones, the way I'd held this whole broken family together. By the time he stepped down, the lie my parents had been selling for years, that they were just busy providing, was gone. Shattered in front of everyone. No one clapped. Back at the house, they didn't say a word to me. They just posted some filtered photos of the diploma, with captions like "proud parents moment" and "all our hard work paid off." But the truth was already out there. And there was no going back. It started with a knock. Not loud, not aggressive. Just 3 polite taps at the front door. I was frying eggs when I heard it. Lily was still asleep. Adam was on the couch in a hoodie, scrolling through something with his earbuds in. I opened the door and saw 2 people standing there, a man and a woman, both wearing the kind of business casual that instantly screamed government. The woman stepped forward and showed me a badge. Department of Social Services. Child Protective Services Division. "We received a report," she said, in that careful, rehearsed tone, about a possible concern regarding the care of minors at this address. I didn't even know what to say. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. They came inside. They said it was routine, just checking things out. But the way they looked around, I scanning the hallway, peering into the laundry room, taking in the chore chart on the fridge like it was a crime scene, it felt like anything but routine. They asked questions. How long have I been the primary caregiver? Who signs school forms? Who schedules medical appointments? I answered honestly. The man pointed at the binder I keep on the kitchen table, the one with meal plans, medication records, school contacts. "You manage all of this?" "Yes," I said. "Their parents are living here?" He interrupted. I hesitated. "Technically. But they travel a lot." "They're not really. Do you have legal custody?" "No. I'm their brother." That's when the woman started writing something down. By the time they walked out, I was shaking. I didn't even realize how bad until I saw Adam watching from the hallway. His earbuds were out. "What was that?" he asked. "They said it's nothing," I lied. But it wasn't nothing. 2 days later, I found out the report had come from my parents. The DSS rep called to follow up and casually mentioned that the parents had expressed concern that I might be overstepping, creating a controlling environment, and impersonating a parent. I stood there, frozen, listening as she explained how structured schedules, medication logs, and coordinated transportation could be interpreted as excessive control for someone not legally recognized as a guardian. I nearly dropped the phone. My own parents had filed the report. After everything, after Adam's speech, after I kept this household together while they chased status, they were now trying to reframe my care as control. And it got worse. They didn't just report me. They started reshaping the story. Their social media lit up with carefully worded posts, reclaiming the time we lost with our kids, healing our family after a difficult season, grateful for the chance to be more present. Old photos of Lily and Adam resurfaced, beach days, family dinners, all posted out of order to paint a different picture. It looked like they'd been active, involved parents all along. Most of those pictures were staged. Some were years old. Some were taken on weekends when they happened to show up for an hour, just long enough to get a shot. People believed it. Neighbors started acting weird. One mom from the PTA I used to carpool with wouldn't make eye contact at the grocery store. Another teacher I'd always chatted with at pickup told me, "I hope your family's doing okay. Your mom said it's been a hard transition." I nodded and smiled. But inside, I felt something unraveling. They were taking back the narrative. Using the same system I relied on to protect my siblings, checklists, documentation, routines, and twisting it into evidence that I was unfit. I wasn't being seen as the kid who kept his family from falling apart. I was being seen as the problem. And the more I fought to hold on, the more it looked like I was losing control. I wasn't expecting my grandmother to show up that day. She never drove that far anymore, not since her blood sugar got harder to manage. But when she heard about CPS coming to the house, she must have panicked. I opened the door and she practically fell into my arms, clutching her big leather purse and gasping for breath. "Where are they?" she asked. "Where are the kids?" I helped her into the living room, got her water, and made her sit. She was clammy, pale, her glucose monitor beeped twice before I even had a chance to grab her testing kit. I found an old snack pack of applesauce in Lily's lunch bin and forced her to eat it while I looked for something more substantial. She kept muttering the whole time, "This is crazy. After everything you've done, Theo." While I was in the kitchen heating up soup, I heard giggling from the front porch. Lily's giggling. I peeked through the side window and felt my stomach flip. My mom was crouched down in front of Lily, holding out a lollipop, pink, sparkly wrapper, the kind she always said would rot her teeth. Lily took it with both hands, eyes wide. My mom tucked a strand of hair behind Lily's ear and smiled like they were best friends. "You know, we were thinking," she said, "maybe we could redecorate your room. Would you like a pink room? With fairy lights? And a puppy?" Lily gasped. "A real puppy? If you're good and listen to mommy, maybe." My chest tightened. I stepped outside fast enough that the screen door slammed. Lily jumped. My mom straightened up. "Oh," she said, all innocence. "We were just talking." "I can see that," I said. "Lily, sweetie, go check on Grandma for me." Lily nodded and skipped back inside, candy clenched in her hand. My mom didn't move. "You don't need to be so dramatic, Theo. She's still my daughter." "You gave her a lollipop and promised her a dog," I said flatly. I was bonding. "No," I said. "You were baiting her." She crossed her arms, all calm like she was the reasonable one. "You can't expect children to make healthy emotional choices if they're only hearing one side. We're her parents. She deserves to hear from us." "You haven't even been here," I snapped. "You didn't even know what size shoes she wears until I texted you last fall." Before she could answer, my dad strolled up the walkway, wearing his office shirt like he'd just finished a big sale. He had a couple neighbors with him, the Changs from across the street, Mr. Donaldson, who always fixed his mower too early on Saturdays. "Thanks for stopping by," my dad said cheerfully to them. "Just trying to clear up a few things. You know how rumors spread." They nodded, offering me those tight, polite smiles people wear when they've already picked a side. "We're trying to take care of our family," my mom added, loud enough for them to hear. I turned and went inside before I did something I'd regret. My phone buzzed 5 minutes later, a fraud alert from the bank. One of the joint accounts I'd set up for rent and groceries was accessed. A withdrawal. Not a big one, but enough to get flagged. I checked the name. It was one of my mom's friends, Cheryl. She worked the teller line at our local branch, and she was deep into the same MLM my mom had been pushing for years. They knew. They were watching everything I did. The rent money I had transferred that morning, probably my last emergency reserve, was already under their microscope. Every move I made, every receipt I kept, every choice I thought was mine, they were twisting it. Turning my stability into obsession. My responsibility into control. My love into something that looked dangerous on paper. And no one was asking why two parents who hadn't tucked their kids in for a year were suddenly ready to step up. They just kept nodding along. Because their version had the better lighting. The cleaner story. And I was starting to look like the villain. It started with silence. My best friend Ava stopped texting me back. At first, I thought she was just busy. She had 2 kids, a full-time job, and a husband who constantly rotated between being overworked and vaguely irritated. But after 3 unanswered messages and 1 ignored voicemail, I started to get that tight feeling in my chest again. Then I saw her post on Facebook. A picture of her and her family at the lake with the caption, "Nothing like a little peace and quiet. Protect your space." I wasn't tagged. I wasn't invited. I called her that night. "Hey," she answered after 2 rings, voice already strained. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said. I feel like you've been avoiding me." There was a pause. "Theo, I didn't want to make this awkward, but my husband thinks it's better if we give you a little space right now. Just until things settle down." "Settle down?" I repeated, already knowing what was coming. "He's worried," she said gently. "About liability. About the kids being around all this. There's been a lot of talk." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The line stayed quiet long enough for her to add, "I'm not saying I agree with it. It's just complicated." But I knew what that meant. Someone, probably my mother, had gotten to her. Or maybe just to her husband. One whisper in the right group chat and suddenly I was radioactive. It snowballed after that. Mr. Hennessy, Adam's math teacher, used to nod at me every morning during drop-off. Now he barely looked up. At Lily's art club, another mom pulled her kid away when I offered to help carry the juice boxes. I stopped getting school emails. I stopped getting calls from Adam's counselor, even though I'd been the one coordinating his IEP meetings for the past 2 years. And then came the pharmacy. Adam takes a low-dose ADHD med. We'd had the same prescription on file since he was 11. Every few months, I'd call it in, give them my name, and pick it up without issue. This time, the pharmacist's voice was cold. "I'm sorry. We need paternal consent. I've always picked this up," I said. "I'm his brother and legal emergency contact. The doctor has me listed." "Yes, well," she interrupted, "we were contacted and told that full custody has returned to the parents." My throat went dry. "Who contacted you?" "I can't disclose that." I stood there in the aisle, surrounded by vitamins and overpriced heating pads, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers went numb. "Is there anything I can do to override this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated. "We can put in a call to the prescribing physician, but I'd recommend speaking with the parent directly." I hung up. 5 minutes later, I got a text from my dad. "First one in months. I'll approve the refill. Just drop the custody claim. Let's end this before it gets ugly." I stared at the screen. That was the first time they said it out loud. This wasn't about what's best for the kids. This was about winning, about control, about power. I went back inside the pharmacy and tried to explain what was happening, but the words wouldn't come out right. I could feel my voice shaking, my face flushing. The pharmacist looked uncomfortable. A second clerk came out and stood nearby. A manager appeared, hovering just close enough to make it clear they were watching. Eventually, they asked me to leave. I walked to the parking lot, sat in the car, and broke down. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, ugly sobs with my forehead against the steering wheel and my hands clenched in my lap. Because this wasn't just about a pill bottle. It was about losing everything I had spent years building: routines, trust, safety, and watching it all be turned into evidence against me. I thought love was enough. I thought being the one who showed up would matter more than who had the paperwork. But now I was being rewritten in real time, from protector to threat. And no one was coming to save me. I stopped trying to explain myself. No one was listening anyway, not the neighbors, not the school, not even the people I thought were on my side. Every defense I gave just made things worse. I was too emotional, too attached, unable to separate myself from the role I stepped into. So I stopped talking, and I started collecting. I went back through every email I'd ever sent, to teachers, doctors, camp directors. I pulled up every online appointment booking I made, every reminder I logged in Lily's pediatric portal. I screenshotted school lunch account top-ups, pulled PDFs of report cards I'd signed off on. I printed it all, hole-punched it, filed it. I even tracked down old photos, Adam in his Halloween costume, me crouched next to him tying his shoe. Lily asleep on my chest in the recliner at 3 a.m., my physics textbook open on the floor. Proof, time-stamped and real. It wasn't just a binder. It was a defense. And I wasn't done. One night while Adam was asleep, I remembered something: my mom's old Amazon account. She'd logged in on the house computer a couple years back, and I still had the password saved in my Chrome autofill. My hands trembled as I opened it. Years of order history spilled out. Wine subscriptions, yoga mats, party favors for bachelorette shoots, 100 glossy self-help books about finding joy and manifesting success. You know what I didn't find? Diapers, formula, kids' shoes, school supplies. Not a single damn box of children's Tylenol. I downloaded every receipt. The next day, I walked into the CPS office alone. No lawyer, no family member by my side. Just my binder and a flash drive full of data. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just asked for an appointment with our caseworker. When we sat down, I showed her everything, the photos, the logs, the patterns. I showed her how many times I signed Lily out of school for checkups, how many prescription refills had my initials scribbled on the pickup line. I showed her the Amazon records and the total lack of anything related to parenting. Then I pulled out a USB drive and slid it across the table. There's a video on there, I said quietly. Me, age 16, feeding Lily at 2 a.m. while my parents hosted a pool party outside. You can hear the music through the window. The caseworker watched in silence. I saw something shift in her expression, not sympathy, but calculation. Like she had just realized I wasn't the kid in the way. I was the only one who had ever actually been there. But when she finally looked up, her face was unreadable. You've done a lot, she said. But one concern we'll have to address is why you didn't report the neglect sooner. Failing to report can be considered enabling the inappropriate family dynamic. I stared at her, stunned. I had sacrificed everything, my childhood, my future, my entire identity, and now they were saying I should have spoken up earlier? Maybe I should have. Maybe if I had, none of this would have gotten this far. But I was a kid. And kids don't think about court cases or documentation. They think about getting their sister to sleep, making it to school on time, keeping the fridge from going empty. Now, it didn't matter, because my parents were already presenting their new version of the story, coached by their lawyer, curated for court. They were sorry. They'd made mistakes. But they were ready now. They were reclaiming their family. And the only person standing in the way was me. The drawings did it. Katie's art teacher called me after school one afternoon. Her voice was gentle, but something about it made my chest tighten. I thought you should see these, she said. They're concerning. When I got into the classroom, she handed me 3 pages of crayon scrawls on construction paper. Childlike and messy, the kind that made you smile until you looked closer. In one, there was a big boy holding 2 smaller kids while a tall woman stood in the background holding a phone. In another, a figure with a frown labeled Dad was standing outside a door marked Locked. In the last, there was a house split in 2, one side full of color and food and toys, the other side dark with a crying stick figure sitting alone. Did Katie explain any of these? I asked. She just said they were her family, the teacher replied softly. She said you take care of them, that you make things better. I took the drawings home and stared at them for a long time. They were innocent, unfiltered truth. And somehow, I already knew they'd be used against me. That weekend, I tried to get ahead of it. I sat down with my mom and hit record on my phone. I didn't warn her. I just asked simple, pointed questions. Why didn't you come to Lily's parent-teacher conference last year? We were traveling, she said, breezily. Why did I have to take Adam to the ER when he had bronchitis? You're good with stuff like that, Theo. And the time CPS came? That was your report, wasn't it? She froze, eyes narrowing. Are you recording me? I just want the truth, I said quietly. She stood up like I'd slapped her. This is harassment. You're trying to trap me in some gotcha moment. I didn't say anything. She stormed out of the room, and within an hour, my dad had posted a Facebook status about being under siege by a bitter young man obsessed with control. The story shifted again. But worse than that, they started digging in. At the preliminary custody hearing, the judge asked to review Katie's drawings. My parents' lawyer argued that they were signs of parental alienation, that I'd poisoned the kids against their real parents. It didn't matter that the drawings came straight from Katie's head. It didn't matter that they matched exactly what had happened in our home. They were now part of the case against me. Then came the psychologist. A court-ordered child specialist, neutral by design but cold in practice. She sat down with each of us one-on-one. Me, Adam, Katie, even my parents. She watched our faces, scribbled in a notepad, nodded but never smiled. It felt like our whole lives were being funneled through a stranger's filter. One misstep, one poorly worded answer, and she'd decide what kind of home we deserved. When it was Adam's turn, I waited in the hallway. He came out looking pale, his jaw clenched the way it always did when he was trying not to cry. Later, when I was finally granted access to the preliminary therapy summaries, I read something that gutted me. Adam had written, I love my brother, but sometimes it felt like I had to be perfect just so he wouldn't give up on us. Like if I messed up, he'd break. I had to sit down on the floor. My legs just gave out. All this time, I thought I'd been protecting them. I thought I'd been giving them something our parents never could, stability. But I had no idea the weight I'd put on them to survive. Even love can leave bruises, I guess. And now, in court, the line between love and damage was being drawn by people who didn't know me, didn't know us, didn't know what it took to hold together a family that never worked the way it was supposed to. Katie's sweet little voice, her innocent drawings, were being reframed into ammunition. Adam's quiet resilience was now evidence of trauma. And me? I was just the overgrown sibling who tried too hard for too long. The one who dared to act like a parent when no one else did. And the system didn't know what to do with that. I saw her first from across the gym, Melissa, my dad's new girlfriend, kneeling by Katie's feet at dance class. She was braiding her hair. The exact way I used to. Side part, twist in the front, then fold it into a low bun, so it stayed out of her face during tap. Katie looked up at her and smiled, and something in my chest snapped like dry twine. Melissa wasn't even subtle. She wore matching earrings with my mom, called herself Bonus Mom in Instagram comments, and now she was playing caretaker in public, like the last 13 years never happened. I tried not to react, tried not to cause a scene, but that night, I got the official update from the court. Temporary visitation granted. For me, not custody, not even shared responsibility, just supervised time, every other weekend, maybe a weekday if the parents deemed it healthy. The reason? Burnout. Unresolved emotional dependency. The report from the psychologist was full of language like rigid caregiving patterns and enmeshed identity roles. In other words, I had cared too much, too long, too consistently. And now I was a liability. I thought I was past crying over this. I was wrong. What crushed me most was the essay. Adam's midterm English paper was submitted anonymously, but I knew his voice the second I read it. It was called Invisible Until Broken. He wrote about growing up in the background of someone else's crisis. About how being the easy kid meant no one checked in on you. How praise only came when you performed, and silence was safer than asking for more. He didn't use my name, but he didn't have to. I knew I was the one who made him feel like that. Not on purpose, not maliciously. But still, I had been so focused on holding everything together that I didn't see the cracks forming underneath. And now it was too late. The very love I thought was keeping us strong was being used to show how unstable I was. Work wasn't any better. I got called into the manager's office at the tutoring center where I'd worked part-time since senior year. She was kind, but firm. "We're just in a fragile place right now," she said, hands folded neatly. "Given everything going on with your family, we need someone who can bring steadiness." "Am I not steady?" I asked. "You've missed 2 shifts," she said. "And you looked upset in front of the middle school group last week." I nodded, said I understood. Then I saw the new hire schedule posted behind her. Melissa. Hard for the exact slot I just lost. That's when I stopped waiting for things to turn around. I built a timeline. A spreadsheet so detailed it made my old color-coded notebooks look like doodles. Every field trip, every doctor's visit, every missed school event. All cross-referenced with flight bookings, tagged social posts, and email timestamps from my parents' accounts. I even included notes from teachers and timestamps from homework portals to show who was really logging in. It was undeniable. Neglect wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a system, and I had the receipts. But I knew now, it wouldn't be the truth that won in the end. It would be which story made the judge feel something. And right now, my parents had the better PR team. I had the data, but they had the smiles. It started with a box. A beat-up cardboard thing my grandmother handed me from the top shelf of her closet. "Your mom used to write a lot," she said, pressing it into my arms. "I don't know if she ever meant for you to read these, but I think you should." Inside were old notebooks and faded envelopes. Letters. Journal entries. Scribbles on the backs of shopping lists. At first, I didn't know what I was looking for. But then I found it. A crumpled letter from my great-aunt to my grandmother, dated almost 12 years ago. "I'm worried about Lily and Adam. Every time I visit, Theo's the one feeding them. Where are the parents? Why is no one saying anything?" There were more like it. Aunts, cousins, friends, all whispering concern over the years. All ignored. They had seen the truth, but they stayed quiet, the way people do when they don't want to start something. Then I read my mom's journal. The early entries were full of ambition and excuses. I wasn't meant for small-town motherhood. "Sometimes I feel like Theo is stealing my role. I was supposed to be the redemption arc, not him." That line stopped me cold. She didn't just feel absent. She felt eclipsed. I hadn't replaced her by accident. I had replaced her by default. And she hated me for it. From that point on, I changed my strategy. No more fighting the narrative head-on. It wasn't working. People didn't want to hear from the angry older brother who looked like he'd been up for 3 days. So I pivoted. I started smiling in public, talking about healing. I posted throwbacks of me and Lily reading books, Adam and I walking to school, happy little captions about growing up fast and learning hard lessons. I mirrored my mom's tone exactly. Learning to embrace the chaos and find the joy. Hashtag family first, hashtag growing together. What I didn't say was that every post had a digital footprint underneath. Metadata, timestamps, geolocations. I worked with a friend from high school, she's in cybersecurity now, to extract phone data from an old iCloud backup I found on our shared family laptop. Inside were hundreds of voice memos, deleted messages, even camera roll files she'd tried to erase. There was a video of Lily crying in her crib while my mom filmed her from across the room, using a ring light and cooing in a fake voice. There were text messages from my dad, coaching her through what to say when CPS called. Keep it vague. Focus on wanting a fresh start. I packaged everything. Neatly. Legally. Logged and backed up in triplicate. And then, I sent it to the court-appointed guardian ad litem. I didn't say a word about it online, but I kept posting. Birthday cupcakes. Adam's honor roll letter. A photo of Katie's latest crayon masterpiece taped to the fridge. Always with a cheerful caption. Always with a quiet knife beneath the surface. Because now I understood, they weren't just trying to get their kids back. They were trying to get their power back. They had spent a decade coasting on charm and control, and I had made them irrelevant. And for people like my parents, that was the deepest betrayal of all. The judge scheduled an evidentiary hearing. I wasn't told why, but I had a feeling. Because for the first time, the court wasn't just looking at our present. They were looking at our history. And history, if you kept the right kind of records, didn't lie. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not just the air conditioning, the whole atmosphere. Gray walls. Plastic seats. A judge who looked like she hadn't smiled since the 90s. No drama, no tension, just routine. That almost made it worse. This wasn't a movie. There was no soundtrack. Just papers shuffling and lives being decided in monotone voices. The psychologist spoke first. She explained something called parentification. Said I'd taken on roles that no child should have been asked to carry. That while my siblings were playing, I was scheduling dental cleanings. While other kids were getting grounded for staying out too late, I was filling out W-4s and tracking insurance deductibles. But despite the premature burden, she said, her voice calm and neutral, Theo has demonstrated sustained emotional intelligence, resilience, and a clear understanding of healthy boundaries. My mom flinched at the word burden. My dad stared straight ahead, face blank. Then it was my turn. I handed over the video, the one of my dad in Miami, beer in hand, laughing on a boat the same weekend Adam was in the hospital with strep so bad he couldn't swallow. I gave the judge a thick packet, receipts, school attendance logs, emergency room signatures. All of it signed by me. My name, not theirs. Everywhere it counts, I said, my voice steady. They weren't there. My parents' lawyer tried to spin it. They spoke of renewed commitment, learning from the past, and deep remorse. But the court had already seen the picture. A decade of neglect, polished over with captions and hashtags. And me, the kid who held everything together, now being told I had held on too tightly. When the judge finally looked up from her notes, the room fell silent. There are no easy decisions in cases like this, she said. But there are clear patterns. And in this case, those patterns point to sustained neglect by the biological parents and protective caregiving by the sibling. She paused. My heart pounded so loud I couldn't hear anything else. The court grants legal guardianship to Theodore James Wells. Effective immediately. I didn't move. Not at first. I just stared ahead, like the words hadn't landed yet. Then I heard a quiet gasp. Adam. Lily grabbed my hand and squeezed so hard it hurt. The judge kept going. Visitation rights for the parents will be supervised, pending psychological evaluations and demonstrated behavioral progress. Translation: they weren't getting the kids back anytime soon. Outside the courtroom, they tried to approach us. My dad called after me, voice low but urgent. Theo, let's talk. This doesn't have to be the end. My mom didn't say anything. Just stood there with her arms crossed, eyes darting between the reporters by the elevators. I didn't stop walking. I didn't owe them a single word. Outside, the sun hit me like a slap, too bright, too warm. For a second, I just stood on the sidewalk, blinking. Then I looked at Adam, who was still clutching the court paperwork like it might disappear. At Lily, who had already taken her shoes off and was stepping on every sidewalk crack like it was a game. They were safe now. Not whole. Not healed. But safe. I let out a breath I'd been holding for 13 years. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have to carry it alone.